I was 19 years old when I first experienced sleep paralysis. At that age, I didn't even know what the word meant. All I knew was that one night completely changed the way I felt about my own bedroom. It started on an ordinary night. I had just finished studying late for an exam and went to bed around 2 a.m. I remember the glow of my laptop screen fading as I closed it, the room going dark except for the faint light leaking in from a street lamp outside my window. I fell asleep almost instantly. And then, I woke up, at least I thought I woke up. My eyes snapped open and I was staring at the ceiling. But something was wrong. I couldn't move. Not a finger. Not my head, not even my lips. At first I thought maybe I was just half asleep. I told myself, just relax. You'll wake up in a second. But then the pressure started. It felt like an invisible weight was crushing my chest, like someone was sitting on me. I tried to take a deep breath, but it came out shallow and shaky. That's when I noticed the corner. At the far end of my room near the closet, the shadows seemed darker than usual, like the darkness was folding in on itself, shaping into something. And then I saw it, a tall figure, unnaturally tall. Its head nearly touched the ceiling. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just stood there. My heart pounded so hard I swore I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to scream for my parents, for anyone, but my jaw wouldn't open. My voice was locked inside my throat, and then it started moving. One step, heavy, deliberate. The sound echoed in my skull even though the room was silent. It took another step, and another. Every time I blinked, it was closer. First near the closet, then halfway across the room. Then standing right at the foot of my bed. I was frozen, staring at this thing towering over me. I couldn't make out a face. It was like looking into a black hole, a human shape but hollow, empty, and then it bent down. I swear I could feel the air shift as it leaned inches from my face. I couldn't smell breath, I couldn't see eyes, but I felt it looking at me. That's when it whispered. The sound was like static, broken words in a language I didn't know. It crawled straight into my skull like 1,000 voices speaking at once. I wanted to cry, but my body was still locked. And then, just as suddenly as it started, my body released. I gasped, sat up in bed, drenched in sweat. The room was empty. The corner was just shadows again. I told myself it was a dream, but when I looked at my phone, it was exactly 3:07 a.m. And the strangest part? On the floor near the closet, there were 2 clear footprints. Large, heavy, pressed into the carpet, as if someone had really been standing there. For weeks afterward, I couldn't sleep in that room. Even now, years later, sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still glance at that corner, half expecting to see him standing there again. I had always heard people joke about the sleep paralysis demon. I laughed too, until I met mine. It was the summer after high school. I was living with my grandmother in her old house, a place that already felt haunted, the kind of house where floorboards creaked at night, and every hallway seemed too long, too dark. One night, I stayed up late scrolling on my phone. It must have been close to 4 a.m. when I finally set it down and drifted off. I woke up suddenly, my eyes opened to the sight of my bedroom ceiling. The fan above me was spinning, slow, almost hypnotic, but I couldn't move. Not my arms, not my legs. I tried to roll over, but my body was pinned to the mattress, and then the weight started. It wasn't just pressure on my chest this time. It felt like someone was actually sitting on me, so heavy I could barely breathe. At first I saw nothing, just the room, lit faintly by the moonlight through the window. But then I looked down and my blood ran cold. There was an old woman sitting on my chest. Her skin was pale, wrinkled, almost gray. Her hair hung in messy white strands over her face. Her mouth was twisted into a grin, but her eyes were completely black. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I could feel her hands pressing into my shoulders, long, bony fingers digging into me. And then she spoke. Her voice was raspy, broken like dry leaves crumbling. She whispered, "You don't belong here." My heart stopped. I didn't know what she meant. I couldn't move, I couldn't fight. All I could do was lay there as her weight crushed the air out of me. Her grin widened. She leaned closer until her face was inches from mine. Her breath was ice cold like winter wind blowing into my lungs. And she whispered again, this time louder, almost angry. "Leave!" Suddenly the fan above me stopped spinning. The whole room went silent. And then she screamed. It wasn't human. It was like 100 voices screaming at once, a shriek so loud I thought my ears would burst, and then my body released. I shot upright, coughing, clutching my chest. The room was empty. The fan spun normally. But my shoulders, they were sore. When I looked in the mirror the next morning, there were faint bruises where her fingers had pressed down. I never told my grandmother. I didn't want to scare her. But for the rest of that summer, I never slept in that room again. Because every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear her voice in my head, whispering those two words, "You don't belong." I never believed in the paranormal. Ghost stories, demons, shadows in the night, I used to laugh them off. That changed when I moved into the house on Willow Street. It was cheap rent for a 2-bedroom place, and as a broke college student, I didn't ask questions. The house was old, creaky, with peeling wallpaper and doors that didn't close all the way. But what unsettled me most was the bedroom. The window looked out onto the street, and right across from the bed was a long, rectangular mirror nailed into the wall. The first night I noticed something odd. As I lay half asleep, I thought I saw movement in the mirror. Just a flicker, like someone walking behind me. When I turned to look, nothing. I told myself it was just my imagination, but then came the paralysis. It was around 2:40 a.m. when it first happened. I woke up staring at the ceiling, unable to move. At first I panicked, trying to thrash my arms, but my body was locked in place. Then I noticed the sound. Breathing. It wasn't mine. It was deeper, heavier, coming from the corner near the mirror. Through the frozen corner of my eye, I saw it. A tall figure, darker than the shadows, slowly peeling itself away from the mirror. Its limbs moved like they were breaking and resetting with each step. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. The thing leaned down close to me, its face just a blur of shifting static, and whispered, "You shouldn't be here." And then, just like that, I woke up drenched in sweat, free again. I told myself it was just sleep paralysis, a bad dream, until the next night. This time I was ready. I'd read online that if you relax, the paralysis passes. But when it hit me again at exactly 2:40 a.m., I realized this wasn't normal because I wasn't alone. I heard scratching. Nails dragging along the wall, moving closer to my bed. The mirror vibrated faintly, like something was trying to push through. And then I saw a hand. A pale, skeletal hand pressing against the glass from the inside, leaving a foggy print. Another hand followed. And slowly, a face began to push through. It wasn't mine. It was grinning, teeth sharp, eyes hollow. My reflection, but wrong. I tried to shut my eyes, but even my eyelids wouldn't move. All I could do was watch as it pressed further, whispering in my own voice, "Let me out." When I finally jolted awake, the handprints were still on the inside of the mirror. For the next week, I barely slept. Every night at 2:40, I woke paralyzed, staring at that mirror. The figure came closer each time, sometimes crawling out, sometimes just standing over me. Once, I swear, I felt its cold fingers brush my neck. But the worst night came on the 7th day. I woke up again, frozen. But this time, the figure wasn't in the mirror. It was sitting on my chest. Its weight crushed me, my ribs groaning under the pressure. Its face hovered inches from mine, flickering between my reflection and a faceless void. And then, it opened its mouth. The sound that poured out wasn't human. It was 1,000 voices, screaming, whispering, chanting all at once. I felt them crawling inside my head, filling me with something dark, something hungry. I wanted to die just to make it stop. And then, suddenly, I was free. I sat up, gasping, the room silent again. But the mirror was cracked. A long fracture running from top to bottom, as if something had tried to break through. I moved out the very next morning, leaving half my things behind. I didn't care. I couldn't spend another night in that room, but sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, frozen in my bed, I swear I can still hear it. That whisper in my own voice, faint, calling from somewhere just out of sight. "Let me out." I never thought sleep paralysis could destroy someone's life. I thought it was just a strange medical condition, a glitch in the brain. But what happened to me in the summer of 2019 was something else entirely. I had just rented a small apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a tiny kitchen. The place was old. with walls that smelled of damp wood and floors that creaked with every step. But the rent was cheap, and I thought it was the perfect place to start over. The first week was normal. I unpacked, decorated, and tried to get comfortable. But at night, I noticed something strange. Every night, I would wake up around the same time, 3:15 a.m., with an uneasy feeling in my chest. Not fear, not panic, just the sense that I wasn't alone. I brushed it off until the night it finally happened. I woke up flat on my back, completely paralyzed. At first, I thought it was a dream. My eyes were open, staring at the ceiling fan above me, but my arms, legs, even my lips wouldn't move. I tried to wiggle my fingers, nothing. That's when I heard it breathing, slow, raspy, uneven breathing. It wasn't mine. It was coming from the corner of the room. With what little movement I had, I turned my eyes toward the sound, and that's when I saw it, a figure, tall, hunched, its arms dangling longer than they should. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle as it stared at me. I couldn't see its face, just the faint shimmer of its outline in the dark. The air grew heavy, pressing down on my chest. I couldn't breathe. And then it moved 1 step, 2 steps, closer, until it stood right beside my bed, leaning down so close I could feel the cold radiating off its body. It whispered in a broken, static-like voice, "You can't leave," and then I was free. My body jerked up, gasping for air, the room empty again. I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, but deep down I knew better. The next night I tried sleeping with the lights on. Didn't matter. 3:15 came, and again I woke up paralyzed. This time the figure wasn't in the corner. It was sitting on my chest. Its weight was unbearable, crushing me into the mattress. I could see its face now, pale and hollow, with eyes that seemed to sink endlessly into the dark. It leaned down, its lips almost touching my ear. "You are mine," it whispered. I could smell it. Rotted, damp earth, decay. It was suffocating me. When I finally broke free, I sat up crying, the weight still lingering on my chest. I tried everything to stop it. Sleeping pills, music in my headphones, even moving my mattress to the living room. But it didn't matter. At 3:15 every night it came. One night I saw it crawling on the ceiling above me, its head twisting completely backward as it grinned. Another night I saw dozens of shadow hands stretching from the walls, reaching for me, brushing across my frozen skin. Sometimes I could hear it whispering from inside my head, like it had found a way into my thoughts. "No one will believe you. You'll never leave." I stopped sleeping, but the less I slept, the worse it got. On the 12th night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I was going to pack my things and leave first thing in the morning, but at 3:15 I woke again, paralyzed. The figure was already standing at the foot of my bed, but this time, it wasn't alone. There were more of them. 5, 6, all crowding around the room, their pale faces staring, their whispers overlapping into a deafening static. The air turned freezing, my body shaking violently even though I couldn't move. The tallest one stepped forward, its hand stretching out toward my chest. And then it pushed, straight through my ribs, straight into me. The moment it touched me, my vision went black. I felt myself falling deeper and deeper into nothing. I thought I had died. When I finally opened my eyes, it was morning. Sunlight poured into the room. I was free. But when I looked in the mirror, my heart stopped, because staring back at me wasn't my reflection. It was me, but smiling. I moved out that same day. I didn't care about the lease, didn't care about losing the money. I left everything behind, but even now, years later, sometimes I wake up at 3:15 frozen in place, and when I glance toward the mirror, I swear I still see that other version of me, grinning, waiting. I was 22 when I first moved into that apartment. It wasn't much, just a small one-bedroom unit on the 3rd floor of an old gray building tucked away on a quiet street. The rent was suspiciously cheap, but as a broke student, I didn't care. The place creaked, smelled faintly of mildew, and the walls had cracks that looked like veins. But it felt like mine. I convinced myself it was cozy, not creepy. The first week was ordinary. Furniture, late-night study sessions, the distant hum of the city. Through the thin walls, I could hear neighbors' muffled conversations, the occasional thud of footsteps in the stairwell. Normal apartment life, at least I thought it was. The second week, I started hearing them, late at night, usually between 2 and 3 a.m. footsteps, above me. At first, I assumed my upstairs neighbor was a night owl. The steps were slow, deliberate, pacing from one end of the apartment to the other. Sometimes they dragged, like someone was too tired to lift their boots. But on the third night, the noise was so loud I complained to the landlord the next morning. He gave me a strange look. "There's no one above you. Unit 403 is vacant. Has been for months." I tried to laugh it off. Old buildings make noises, right? But that night, when the footsteps returned, I didn't sleep. Because if the apartment above me was empty, who was walking? One night around 2:30 a.m., I lay staring at the ceiling, listening to the pacing. Step, drag, step, and then it stopped. For a few seconds, the silence felt like relief, until I heard it again, but this time it wasn't above me. It was in my living room, the sound of heavy boots scraping across my floor. My heart seized. I couldn't move. Couldn't even breathe. Step, drag, step, closer and closer until it stopped outside my bedroom door. I braced myself for the knob to turn, for the door to creak open. But it never did. After what felt like forever, the boots receded, first across my living room, then faintly above me again. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I confronted the landlord again. He hesitated before speaking, like he didn't want to say too much. "Tenants don't stay long in 403, he admitted. They complain of noises, shadows. One woman swore she saw someone in her mirror. Another left in the middle of the night, never came back." He leaned forward. "But there's no one there. I've checked. Every time. I should have moved out right then. But the rent was cheap, and I told myself stress was making me imagine things. I was wrong." The footsteps grew bolder, louder. They'd start upstairs, then suddenly sound like they were in my hallway. I began noticing shadows where they shouldn't be. Tall, thin silhouettes flickering in corners, gone when I blinked. My belongings shifted. A glass slid across the counter while I was sitting at the table. The bathroom faucet turned itself on, and the dreams started. Dreams of a man standing in the unit above me, pacing endlessly. His head always tilted down as if staring through the floor at me. Sometimes I woke to find my bedroom door wide open, even though I always locked it before bed. Desperate, I asked the older tenants if they'd heard anything. Most brushed me off, but one frail woman from the second floor lowered her voice when I mentioned 403. "You live beneath it?" she whispered. I nodded. She sighed. "Years ago, a man lived there. Quiet, kept to himself. One winter, he stopped leaving his unit. Neighbors heard him pacing for days. Then silence. When they went inside, they found him hanging from a pipe in the ceiling." Her eyes locked on mine. "He died with his boots still on. Heavy boots. People say he never stopped walking." The story made my skin crawl, and it explained the dragging. Weeks passed. My exhaustion grew. I blasted music at night, desperate to drown out the footsteps. But one night, silence woke me. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I heard it, a whisper. Faint, muffled, seeping through the ceiling. I couldn't understand the words, but the voice was guttural, angry. Then, 3 knocks. Bang, bang, bang. My lamp flickered. The air turned icy, and slowly 2 boot-shaped impressions pressed into the ceiling above me. The plaster bowed, dust raining down. I stumbled from bed, rushing for the door but it slammed shut on its own. Behind me, the ceiling cracked. A split opened, and through it I saw the outline of boots dangling in the dark. I don't remember how I got out. 1 second I was screaming. The next I was pounding on a neighbor's door, barefoot, shaking. The landlord called the next day. He didn't ask questions. He just told me my unit was under repair and I'd need to move out. I didn't argue. I left everything, furniture, clothes, even my laptop. I never set foot in that building again. It's been years since then. I still dream of boots pacing above me. Still wake some nights at exactly 3:07 a.m. Certain I hear the faint drag of footsteps. The worst part? I don't live under anyone anymore. My new apartment is on the top floor, and sometimes, I swear I hear them anyway. Step, drag, step. Some places never let you go. I left that apartment, but the sound, it followed me. Even now, in quiet nights, I still hear those boots, slow, steady, pacing just above me. And sometimes, I wonder if anyone ever really lived upstairs, or if something else was always waiting there, walking in circles long after midnight.